Samsung is usually the company that pushes new display tech into the mainstream first, but if a new supply chain leak is accurate, Apple might steal the spotlight this year, using next-gen OLED panels that are being built with help from Samsung itself. So let's break down what's being reported about the iPhone 18 Pro and iPhone 18 Pro Max, why this LTPO Plus display upgrade matters, and how it could improve battery life, smoothness, and even the look of the notch. First, the big headline. The iPhone 18 Pro series is rumored to jump from LTPO to LTPO Plus OLED technology. Now, if you remember, Apple first introduced LTPO on the iPhone 13 Pro and iPhone 13 Pro Max back in 2021. That was the moment ProMotion finally arrived on iPhone with a variable refresh rate, meaning the display could intelligently scale from high refresh rates for smooth scrolling down to lower refresh rates when the screen didn't need to update as often. The goal was simple: keep things buttery smooth when you need it and save power when you don't. But LTPO Plus is being described as the higher spec version of that idea, and it could be a bigger deal than it sounds. To understand why, you have to look beneath the glass. Every OLED screen isn't just pixels. Underneath, there's a backplane, a grid of thin film transistors or TFTs that control how those pixels light up. Think of it like the display's control system. The more efficient and precise that control system is, the better the display can manage power, brightness behavior, and overall performance. Traditionally, standard AMOLED displays use something called LTPS, low-temperature polycrystalline silicon, for the TFT layer. LTPS is fast and reliable, but it isn't always the best for power efficiency when you want the screen to dynamically change behavior in tiny increments. That's where LTPO came in. LTPO, low-temperature polycrystalline oxide, improved efficiency by using IGZO, an oxide semiconductor, in certain parts of the backplane, specifically the switching TFTs. That helped the display scale refresh rate more efficiently, and it's one of the reasons iPhone Pro models can dip down in refresh rate to save battery, but LTPO Plus reportedly takes it a step further. With LTPO Plus, the leak suggests that Apple's new Pro OLED panels will use oxide not just for the switching TFTs, but also for the driving TFTs. And this is where things get interesting. Driving TFTs directly control the current that flows to the OLED pixels, basically managing how the pixels emit light. If you can control that current more precisely, the panel can operate more optimally depending on what's happening on screen and what environment you're in. In plain English, LTPO Plus could give the iPhone 18 Pro display finer control over power draw, potentially improving energy efficiency in more situations, not just when refresh rate drops, but also in how the panel manages light output and current delivery. That doesn't automatically mean your battery life will suddenly double, but it does suggest Apple is pushing for meaningful efficiency gains in one of the biggest power-hungry components of any phone, the display. And for a Pro iPhone, that's exactly the kind of upgrade Apple loves, something that's hard to explain in a spec sheet, but noticeable in daily use through better endurance and a more consistent premium experience. Now here's the twist. Apple might be leading the story, but Samsung and LG are still the key players behind the scenes. According to the same leak, Samsung Display and LG Display are expected to supply these high-end LTPO Plus OLED panels for the iPhone 18 Pro and iPhone 18 Pro Max. And notably, BOE, the major Chinese display manufacturer, reportedly didn't make the cut for the Pro models. This time, due to quality and yield issues. In display manufacturing, yield is everything. You can have the perfect design on paper, but if you can't produce enough panels that meet Apple-level quality standards at scale, you don't get the contract, especially for Pro iPhones where Apple can't afford supply bottlenecks. The report also claims Samsung's production volume is increasing by around 10 to 15% compared to last year, which could be another reason why Apple is leaning more heavily on Samsung for the iPhone 18 Pro lineup. In other words, if Apple wants LTPO Plus across the Pro series in big numbers, Samsung and LG are the safe bets, but BOE might not be completely out of the iPhone 18 picture. Because even if BOE can't meet the requirements for the most advanced Pro panels, Apple has a long history of diversifying its supply chain. Apple doesn't like relying on a single supplier, partly for risk management and partly because competition gives Apple leverage in pricing negotiations. So the likely scenario being suggested is this. BOE may still supply OLED panels for the standard iPhone 18 models, even if it's sidelined for the iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max. And that brings us to the other rumored upgrade that could make the iPhone 18 Pro stand out visually: a smaller notch. The leak points to another manufacturing challenge tied to the iPhone 18's OLED production: under-display infrared technology. If Apple is moving more Face ID components under the display, that could help shrink the cutout area at the top of the screen. And if that's the plan, it also helps explain why panel requirements are getting tougher. Under-display sensor tech is notoriously difficult to perfect, especially when you care about both performance and aesthetics. You're asking the display to look uniform while also allowing infrared light and sensor functionality to work reliably through or around the panel. That's not easy, and it's the kind of challenge where experience, manufacturing consistency, and yield rates can make or break a supplier. So if BOE is already struggling with quality and yield on advanced OLED production, it makes sense that Apple would lean on Samsung and LG for the more complex Pro hardware, especially if under-display infrared is part of the roadmap. Now let's talk about what this actually means for you, because LTPO Plus sounds like one of those upgrades that only engineers care about. But here's why it matters in real life. If LTPO Plus truly improves how the iPhone 18 Pro display controls current and manages power across more scenarios, then you could see benefits like more consistent battery life gains during mixed usage, not just in standby or static content, better efficiency at high brightness levels where OLED power draw can spike, smoother performance with less battery, penalty, especially for heavy scrolling, gaming, and high refresh apps, potentially better optimization for always-on display behavior depending on Apple's implementation. And even if the battery life improvement ends up being small, those small gains compound when paired with Apple's chip efficiency improvements and software tuning. Apple loves stacking incremental upgrades that add up to noticeably better endurance by the time the final product ships. So the big takeaway is this. The iPhone 18 Pro might get one of its most important upgrades where most people won't immediately look, inside the display stack. And ironically, Apple may do it by leaning on the same display giants that normally define the Android flagship space: Samsung Display and LG Display. Now the final question is the one everyone cares about. Will LTPO Plus be a wow upgrade or just another quiet refinement? Right now, the honest answer is we don't know exactly how much battery life this will add, because efficiency depends on Apple's tuning, panel calibration, and how the new display interacts with iOS features. But if the leak is accurate, Apple clearly believes this upgrade is worth the cost and complexity because it's choosing top-tier suppliers and reportedly leaving a lower-cost competitor out of the Pro lineup. And if we also get a smaller notch thanks to under-display infrared technology, the iPhone 18 Pro could deliver the kind of upgrade that's both functional and visible, longer-lasting power and a cleaner front design. So keep your eyes on the iPhone 18 Pro display rumors, because this might be the year the most important. iPhone upgrade isn't the camera bump or the titanium frame. It's the OLED technology powering everything you see.